Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Courtside with Beilinson Tennis. As always, joined by my co-host and Hall of Famer, Steve Flink. I guess we can never say the tennis season is completely over, but for our purposes, it basically is over with the ATP Nitto Finals just concluding. And, who would have guessed it was Carlos Alcaraz versus Jannik Sinner in the final, Steve? No surprise there. I think we were happy that that got to be the final result, depending on who they're so even when they play a lot, depending on who you wanted, or, some may have liked the result, some may have been frustrated with the result, but clearly the two best players all year. And it was symbolic that they played in the finals of this event.
Oh, symbolic, and it was very fitting. And I think most neutral observers, obviously, Carlos has a wide legion of fans, so does Yannick. You can get into it from that standpoint, but from a neutral standpoint, I think this result was good because Sinner had lost 4 out of 5 to Carlos this year. He lost 2 out of 3 Slam finals. If he loses the year-end mat final in on his home court, playing in the finals in Turin, I think it could have been a big blow to him. I think he needed it, frankly, needed it more than Carlos did. But the nice part of it was one of their highest quality matches of the year. I mean, obviously the French was the epic. 7-6 in the fifth. Carlos recovery from triple match point down in the fourth. That was the standout by far of the entire year, any match all year. But you look at the four-set Wimbledon final for Yannick and four-set Open final that Carlos won to avenge the Wimbledon loss. They were very good matches. I thought this one, in some ways, was more gripping because both sets were so tightly contested. Yes, it was best of three, but it kept you on the edge of your seats. Standard was high, maybe partially because it's indoors, perfect conditions for both. And so it was a great way to end it. And Sinner, the other thing that was important was that so often Carlos had outmaneuvered him, outdueled him, outplayed him on the biggest points in a lot of these wins that he's had over Yannick. Came down to some clutch play from Carlos, and all credit to him. But this time, the tables were turned slightly because Sinner was down set point on his serve in the first set at 5-6. Second serve came in at about 117 miles an hour into Carlos's body. Very gutsy second serve, very deep, a lot of kick, and Carlos couldn't control the down the line back and return and went long. Sinner hit a forehand winner on the next point, then a service winner into the tiebreak. And once again, he overcame some anxious moments in the tiebreak, a couple uncharacteristic errors from Yannick in the breaker, David, but it didn't hold him back. And eventually he won it 7 points to 4. And then another comeback, and again, another good effort from Yannick on the big points in the second set. He's down a break early, goes down 2-love, gets it back comes back from 3-1 to 3-all with a good fortune on a break point where he hit a total miss hit return that turned into a lob that landed just inside the baseline, and he wins the point on a drop shot. And then he saves a break point at 3-all. Carlos missing a forehand approach long on the break point. And eventually it came down to Carlos serving to stay in the match for the second time at 5-6. And Carlos had game point to get into a tiebreak. And Sinner hit a beautiful down the line backhand return winner into the corner, and then forced Carlos to miss a low backhand volley, and then out rallied him on the last point with Carlos pulling a backhand wide. So what I'm saying is, both those sets came down to just a couple of crucial points. Carlos could well have won the second set, having gone up a break early, and might have won it in a tiebreak if he'd converted the game point on his serve at 5-6. And then obviously Carlos had a great opportunity in the first set with set point on the Yannick serve, but Yannick saved it gamely with that great second serve. So I thought it was and just high standards on both sides of the net throughout, by the way. They both were hitting the ball beautifully, and it was electrifying. I think most people really enjoyed watching it.
A couple quick things I want to mention. Yannick, over the course of the week, he didn't lose a set all week, Steve. That is
Right,
so impressive.
right.
Playing top eight guys,
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
seven guys because he's one of the eight, but
yeah.
first player to win the title in back-to-back years without dropping a set since Ivan Lendl did it in 1985 and 1986. So super impressive. One other thing that was incredible to me about this rivalry between Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz, and I'll credit, and I'm going to butcher the name, so I apologize, but I got to give credit to Bastian Fashan. And again, sorry for butchering the name. He tweeted this after the match. Over the course of this rivalry, Each player has won exactly 1,651 points, Steve. Like at the end of that match, this is what it comes down to. At the end of their, I mean, at this point in their rivalry, they've won exactly the same amount of points against each other. That's incredible, Steve.
It's incredible, and it tells us a couple of things. Number one, David, Carlos leads 10-6 in the series. So he's actually up four matches. He'd been up 10-5, and now Yannick has narrowed it slightly. So that would lead you to believe that it wasn't possible. But I went back and I checked match by match because you were the one that informed me of that tweet. And he's absolutely spot on right. Now, there's a couple of reasons I think, David. Some of the Sinner wins have been more decisive points wise than some of the Carlos wins. And two of Carlos's most crucial wins over Yannick at the French semis of 24 and this year's final, the Epic, he won fewer points. In the one in 24 in the semis was 145 points to 147, and this year it was 192 to 193. So that can happen. Look at Novak and Roger in the 2019 Wimbledon final
Right.
that Novak won 13-12 in the fifth, 14 more points for Federer in that five-set
And
match.
that
But
and that happens when the loser wins those two sets more
yes, right.
lopsided when the winner Novak won three tiebreakers, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. It can work that way, and in the case of say the French semi with Yannick and Carlos last year, at one stage Sinner was up 6-2 love. He piled up what I was probably a pretty big points lead that he
Right.
eventually was able to hold on to despite losing the match. So it just shows you. It tells me that Carlos has been the better player under pressure most of the way. That's why that win yesterday for Sinner is important because he managed to salvage both sets from difficult positions. And Carlos has won more of the hard-fought, really close contests because he's been the better big point player. But that can swing, that can change. And I think if he were to look at that point, if they were to look at it, both of them would be a little surprised. But I think Alcaraz would be complimentary in the sense of I know how tough it is to beat Yannick, so it doesn't shock me. And Yannick would look at it more like I need to exploit my opportunities a little better. That tells me that maybe my record shouldn't be 6-10. If you look at the numbers there, he probably feels he should be even with him. So I'm glad this guy dug it out. It's always interesting to look at that stuff, and it tells us obviously there's no more value in winning a set in a tiebreak than there is in winning a 6-1 set,
Right.
which goes to your point about Federer Djokovic in 2019. Because
It's not
Djokovic,
golf, Steve. It's not you start you Thursday, you get a three stroke lead and you start the next day with that three-stroke lead. It's not like that. A set is a
no,
set.
not at all.
Start it again.
Not at all. Every set has the same value. The score doesn't matter. So Djokovic won all three of his sets that day in tiebreaks, and Roger won a 6-1 set and a 6-4 set, hence the 14-point edge for Federer. But I believe, David, I really believe that the scoring system, I'm so glad that nothing has changed but the tiebreak from the original conception. And I think it works, and I think the players like it, and I think it's very fair. But that was an amazing stat this guy came up with.
Amazing stat.
Yeah.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. All right. By the way, just for kicks, Yannick had a pretty good month in November, prize money wise. For those that want to know how much he made in the month of November, how does $12 million, 700,000 sound to you? I mean, Steve, I mean, I know you take great pride in your career. I take pride in my career. I don't think I've ever made that in a month. I can tell you that. I'm pretty confident I've never made that in a month. I mean, he won six Kings, he won Erst, he won the Paris Masters and then the Nitto ATP Finals. That's
Yeah.
a pretty
Yeah.
good month in November, Steve.
Yeah, and the bulk of that money, the biggest chunk obviously comes from Paris and Turin combined because Paris is a Masters 1000. This is the year-end championship. But you know what, David? He'd smile, but these guys know they're playing for titles. They're not thinking that much about the money because they're so aware that it's going to come rolling in, that the more success they have, that the money will take care of itself. Sinner ended the year the way he wanted to end the year, but in turn, Carlos was the man who ends the year number one in the world deservedly. He clinched that by winning his third match in the round robin over Musetti. And he deserved that. And that actually was probably what he wanted even more coming out of this week than the title itself. So, because he accomplished so much this year. Look, they split the slams like they did in 24, and Carlos was able to defend at the French. He was not able to defend at Wimbledon, but he got his US Open title back. And Yannick was able to defend in Australia, almost won the French, and he got his first Wimbledon. So they both got so much out of the year. But Carlos played more matches, won a lot more matches. He got 70 match wins. And Sinner being out for 3 months did not help in the chase
Right.
for number one. The fact that he came that close is a tribute to him, but Carlos deserved it because it was a more complete year from him.
Agreed. All right, I want to talk about Taylor Fritz and Ben Shelton's performance there too. Great experience for Ben. He just got a raw deal, with that injury in New York, Steve, because he was really getting on a roll, and we were seeing Ben play at his very best so far in his still young career. It was good that he was able to still qualify and get in. He went 0-3, but he lost a really, really tough match. He won the first set actually 6-4 against Felix, but then he lost the next two 6-7, 5-7. He also lost to Zverev and Sinner. None of these guys are easy to play. It's a top 8 in the world, as we know. Great experience for Ben. Taylor probably kicking himself a little bit more. He lost a tough match to Alex, where if he wins that match, I can't remember now, but he probably gets through to the semis
He
if he
would have had a
beats
good shot,
Alex.
but he also lost a very hard fought, and it was a bit unlucky. A well played match against Alcaraz where Taylor
Yes.
won. He won the first set in a tie break. They had both broken early, and Taylor ran away with the breaker 7-2, closing it with a couple of aces. Then he was serving to get into another tie break at 5-6 in the second and played a pretty loose game. And Carlos made him pay for it and beat him in three. But Taylor, had he been able to get to a second set tiebreak, having won the first, maybe he comes away with a win. That would have changed things too. And then De Minaur had been distraught. He
Yes.
was talking about how his close losses were eating him alive. He served for the match against Musetti, couldn't close him out. He lost to Carlos even despite having 5-3 lead in the first set tiebreak, and this stuff was starting to really get to him. Then he managed to really produce against Taylor, and he needed a straight set win, and he got it. And then he played very well, Alex did, against Sinner in the semis. He fought him tooth and nail to 5-0 in the first set, and Sinner finally pulled away 5-2. So I thought De Minaur, who was at one point so despondent, I think came away from the week feeling much better himself. Fritz, I don't think he's too discouraged, David. He would have liked to have been back in the semis at least because he was in the final last year and he was in the semis a couple of years before that, losing to Novak and a couple of tie breaks. So he's had good success in Turin. But I think Taylor would be pretty satisfied with the year, and
Yes.
we'll see him bounce back next year. He's very resilient. As for Ben, as for your comments on Ben, you're right. So true. That injury was a killer. He had so much momentum coming into the Open, and he would have been much better in the fall, regardless. He would have been playing more and more of a force, regardless of what happened in New York. And instead, it was a tough road back. But his previous match against Sinner, he didn't look like he was in it at all. This one was he got him into a tiebreak in the second set, saved a match point to get there. Only one break in the first. So he played really well. And in that match, the match you mentioned against Felix was very close. And then against Zverev, the poor guy, having lost the first, was up 6-3 in the tiebreak, serving in the second set.
Yeah.
And Zverev ran it out. That was the end of Zverev's success for the week, though. He then lost to Sinner despite having 7 break points in 2 sets. He couldn't break them. By the way, Yannick couldn't get broken by anybody until Carlos finally did it in the opening service game of the second set after 47 holds in a row. And then Sinner, despite not having the rhythm on the first serve and not serving the way he had been all fall post open, where he kind of changed his toss and tinkered with other things, he still didn't get broken again the rest of the way. So for the whole week, he was broken once in 5 matches.
Crazy. Crazy, crazy. Felix Auger-Aliassime. I think you could ask yourself two questions. One, where did this come from? And two, where has this been? Because we all know the talent that this guy is. I mean, he looks the part, he plays the part. We've seen the talent, we've seen the results, but I mean, US Open semi really comes out of nowhere. Brussels, he wins that tournament. He's in the final, right, of Paris Masters, and then he's an ATP Finals semifinalist. So great, great end of year for Felix.
Well, part of the answer to your questions is that Felix does love it indoors. So that's part of the reason why when you say, I agree with you, it's like, where was this? You wish he could produce it more. Now, he proved at the Open that there's no reason he shouldn't play great tennis outdoors too. And
And
he
that's the
beat
second time he's made the semis in New York, I believe.
yeah, yes, it is. He lost the previous time to Medvedev, and that was in 21. And he played really well. He took a set off Sinner in the semis in New York, and that's what really got him moving again. He's going to finish the year five in the world now. It was a close pack there between five and eight,
Right.
but he played really well in this tournament. He repeated his U.S. Open win over Zverev. He won the match you mentioned over Shelton, and he played uh, not his best against Sinner. It looked like he might have hurt his leg a bit, but it didn't amount to much of an injury, fortunately. And then in the semi, Carlos was really dazzling, David. I don't think Felix played that badly, but Carlos, especially the first set, which was 6-2, two unforced errors in the whole set, and winner after winner. His timing, he was feeling the ball so well. He was just fantastic. And then almost as good in the second set, which stayed unserved all the way until Felix served at 4-5 with the scoreboard pressure and got broken to end the contest. But good ending to the year. And I feel exactly the way you do. I want to see this continue. I want to see somebody around Felix say, you've got to do this all the time. You're entitled to have a disappointing loss here and there. It's going to happen. But let's see you buckle down. Make something of that number five ranking. You worked hard to get there. Now keep going.
Yeah, I agree, and I think he's well liked by fellow players on the tour. He's well liked by fans throughout the world. So hopefully he can keep this momentum going in 2026 as we continue on. All right, let's touch. We want to touch briefly on the WTA Finals. There's some themes here that we're going to hit deeper with the women in our year-end segment. So we don't want to go too deep in it, but it is, it happened a couple weeks ago, so we do want to acknowledge it here. And then again, we're going to dive deeper into it in our year-end segment. But Elena Rybakina, she played so well. She wins that title. She beats Arina Sabalenka 6-3, 7-6. And I cannot wait to talk about Sabalenka with both you and our good friend David Z at our year-end segment, because what a year for Sabalenka. I mean, clearly to me, player of the year, yet could have a tiny bit more, could have had a sensational year. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
like
true. It's
it's
true.
it's incredible, and we're going to talk about it in a lot more detail in the year end.
Yeah, just a brief comment on it now, though. She did lose to, I guess, the one she might regret the most because of her kind of edge and experience and big match playing know-how was the match to Madison Keys in the finals of the Australian. But still, it was a hard-fought three-set match, and Maddie was coming off a win over Swiatek. So be it. The French loss to Goff was the one we know where Sabalenka got a little distraught over the conditions, and that was another three-setter. And so this was kind of the nature of the year. Anna Samova in a very close semi at Wimbledon, and then she wins the U.S. Open. Had she not won the Open, I think it would have been a very frustrating year. Instead, she knows she was right in the thick of things everywhere. She retains her number one ranking. And I think the likelihood is, David, that next year we'll see even a little bit more success from Sabalenka.
I mean, she's in the finals. She could have won three slams plus the WTA finals
Yeah,
if things went
yeah,
her
it's
way.
true. It's true. Because all those matches are so tight. Now, Rybakina did outplay her, and but Sabalenka had a couple of squandered opportunities, set points in the second set. They were on Rybakina's serve, and she probably laments not converting those. But okay, and she probably a little shocked that she lost the tie breaks, and she's been almost unbeatable in tie
Right.
breaks this year. But Rybakina had come off a very impressive semifinal win over Pagula, who had also beaten Coco in the round robin. Pagula was playing well, tight three sets. Pagula was serving for 5-all in the second set, having broken back and lost a very tough game, couple of game points. Broke back again in the third and got broken again. That match was hanging in the balance. Good effort from Rybakina, and that's what gave her the opportunity to play Sabalenka and maybe play a little freer. I think in the match with Jess, she figured, well, I think my best is better than her best. She might have felt that way. I'm sure Pagula felt the same way. But in the final, it's different. It's kind of like, look, I have nothing to lose. Sabalenka, she's the best in the world, but I think I can beat her. And that's how she played the match. Free, hitting freely, serving beautifully. When her serve is on, it's the best in women's tennis. It's
Yes.
even better than Sabalenka's. And Rybakina served beautifully against Sabalenka.
Yeah, and that's saying much something because we know the history with Sabalenka and her serving, and she got through that mentally,
Yeah,
obviously, which is good. But her first serve's incredible, so it's saying a lot. And
yeah,
I agree with you that
yeah.
Elena Rybakina has the best serve in women's tennis when it's on.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a good listen. It was a good end. We both the women had a great year. Lots of different stars came into the picture. Sabalenka was the one constant, but all the others had great years. And Rybakina to end the year of that title was important. I think it could carry her into 2026, and we might see sort of a reemergence there. Maybe she can grab another Grand Slam title.
And we're going to talk about Coco as well in the year-end segment because we
Sure.
want to hear your
Yeah.
thoughts on her year as well. Before we end, there was news out today, and I just listened to it before we went live here, Steve. Chris Eubanks announced his retirement, and he was on live on Andy Roddick's pod announcing it too, which I just listened to. Chris, very, very smart, very well spoken. Everyone loves his commentating already. He's going to be successful. He wants to dive deeper in the commentating world. He'll obviously be successful with that, but I think whatever he puts his mind to, Steve, he'd be successful at. He's very well thought out, very smart. I mean, Georgia Tech was there for 3 years, I believe, and he's got a heck of a future with whatever he decides to do, Steve.
Yeah, I'm sorry to see him go. I listen, there's not too much I can add. You stated it very well. He is likable and he's very smart and he's a very discerning commentator. He makes every word count. He really knows how to pick apart these players' games and gets it. And he's a good-natured guy. And I thought a couple years back when he nearly beat Medvedev in the Wimbledon quarters and he'd won a tournament before that he was on his way and it really spiked his ranking way up to around 30 in the world. But he wasn't able to live up to that standard. I'm sure he's thought this decision through. But I have no doubt he'll have great success. I just hope he'll stay in the game. I'm sure there might be opportunities for him in the business world outside of tennis that he might take, but I hope he stays in tennis. I hope he does a lot more now for Tennis Channel and the commentary. And it's kind of sad news, but I wish him all the best.
Right. And there was also some talk on the pod with Roddick about, there's some sport, former New York Giant, Michael Strahan, you start in your sport, though Chris would start in tennis, which is what he wants to do. And then, as you get really good, and no doubt this will most likely happen with Chris, other opportunities in broadcasting outside
Could be.
of your
Yeah.
chosen sport may come your way. So, but he wants to really hone in on tennis, hone his skill with tennis there, and then see where, the future takes him. So best of
Yeah.
luck to Chris.
Oh, absolutely. Good guy. I think he was an electrifying player and he was super aggressive and he played a little differently from most other guys. Maybe his ground game couldn't quite measure up to some of them, but boy, when he was on, it was a joy to watch him. And I saw that match with Medvedev, which was settled by a hair's breadth, as they say. I mean, it was a whisker, and he lost it on court one, and he played a whale of a match. And that's how I'll always remember him. And he really took in he soaked in the atmosphere. It was almost at times like he was stepping outside of himself and looking up into the stands and smiling and while he was still competing fiercely in between points, there were moments where you thought he was saying, "Isn't it great to be there? I can't believe I'm standing out here playing a Wimbledon quarterfinal."
Well said, Steve, as you always do. This is not the end for us or 2025 yet. We're having now it's becoming our annual dinner in a couple weeks in New York, so we'll be out there in person. We'll have our brainstorming session, and then shortly after that, we'll do our year-end segment. So with that, before we leave, I'll give you the last word, Steve.
No, David, I think I've said it all. And thanks again. I enjoyed this and looking forward to the year-end wrap.
Thanks, Steve.